is on. All right, let me, pardon me for if I have to flip back to my list of training topics here. Okay, just to make sure that I cover everything. So just to not be too confusing, I'm going to start with all of the logged in information, and we're going to end the session today with Chris giving you the rundown of volunteer profiles. I'm going to log into the database, go to our volunteer software. The major features that we're going to talk about today are our volunteer center membership management, our volunteer profiles, and the community sets, so the change to the way that communities work. Those are the really big items today. I'm going to start with some of the more minor items that we're going to cover today. I'll leave this like this, which is the first one being in the general setup options that we have given you the ability to have a different website address for volunteer and community information. This is particularly important if your volunteer database is different from your, is run by a different organization than your community information database. In the past, any outgoing emails that were generated by the system always used the same website address, and so the volunteer software and the community information software were forced to use the same kind of address, which didn't necessarily coordinate. One example might be in Halton, they're forced to use search.hipinfo.info, which is the Halton information provider, even though Volunteer Halton is its own distinct organization. Another example would be in Hamilton, that Volunteer Hamilton's base address, in the past they would have used hamilton.cioc.ca or some of the base address, whatever is registered in the system. That's I think inform.hamilton.ca, I think it might be, whereas they might like something that has their own identity better. So one of the changes that we've made is that each of you can have your own basic website address that is published in email. So that means that if Volunteer Hamilton wanted volunteerhamilton.cioc.ca to be their basic address for any outgoing emails, that they could do that. And similarly, if Volunteer Halton wanted volunteerhalton.cioc.ca as their base address for any outgoing emails or basic information in the software, that they could do that. So it really does allow you to preserve your own identity. This is really, as I say, more important for organizations where the volunteer management is done by totally different groups than the people who do the management of the community information software. If you do want to add a brand new address, you can approach me. It is a $50 fee to CIOC to add a brand new address to your database. There are no additional fees if you want a CIOC.ca address. If you want a completely different website address, which is not a CIOC.ca address, you are responsible for registering that yourself, and I would give you all the information to configure it properly to work with your CIOC database. Next, we have a few different default emails that have been set up in the system. We have, and particularly I want you to pay attention to our default email for volunteer profiles. So in the past, all the outgoing emails that went out of the software depended on you properly configuring your agency update email. If the agency update email was left blank, then the emails wouldn't get sent out by the system. They would simply be dropped. You would not be able to send the email. The system would not be able to send the email out. That means no update requests, no notifications of feedback. None of those things would be possible if you hadn't completed that setup properly. In addition, for something like our new feature, the volunteer profiles, we needed an outgoing email address that wasn't tied to any one agency, because volunteer profiles aren't tied to any one record in the database. They're completely independent things. So that's why we have these default emails. And You will need to fill these out in each of your databases after the upgrade, so it's very important that everyone, after the next software upgrade, goes into their general setup options and enters in a value for the default emails here. And that's what will be used if an agency email is unavailable, meaning you haven't filled it out for whatever reason, or for the volunteer profiles, because it's not tied to an agency, we need to have an email to use in that case. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about either of those new setup items?
We've got a hand raised.
Yep.
Mother.
Yes, you may speak.
Sorry, it's me again. I was just looking at the messages beneath those two email addresses. And the second one, should the description of why you needed it be changed slightly? Because it seemed like you were saying it didn't have anything to do with the fact that there wasn't an email in the agency, but rather that it was needed regardless.
It is. The underlying need is the same. We can't identify a specific agency email. To be honest, sometimes descriptions are the same where possible so that we have less things to translate into French.
Oh, and I completely, and I guess my question was, this makes it sound like it's optional, and I had the impression that it wasn't optional.
None of them are optional. You have to go all in. So
but if you have email in your agency,
and it won't get used, but you still have to have it there. It's like a security blanket. Following the next upgrade, the system is going to require you to have all three of these emails. Well, you won't need the volunteer emails if you don't use the volunteer software, but you will have to have default emails specified for all of these items if you use them. And so I'll have everybody go in and add them, and once they're there, the system won't let you remove them. You'll have to have them.
Okay, that's fine. That makes it perfectly clear. I thought it was one was optional, one was not. But
none of them are going to be optional. They will all be required. And,
okay, well,
part of the reason why they will all be required is that right now the way that we use the default emails is if the agency information is missing. However, the long-term goal of these emails is actually so that you can send out emails for new record suggestions. Because right now, no emails go out for new record suggestions because they're not tied to a specific agency. So we have no way to know who to send the emails to.
Okay.
So
I'm going to put my hand clarified. I'll try not to raise my hand. Somebody else needs to raise their hand the next time. Bye.
The other reason that we have had put these default emails in, although we're not doing it yet, but the reason that they're there is so that in the future when someone suggests a brand new record, so a brand new volunteer opportunity or a brand new community information record, that there will be an email sent to the agency administrator and to the person who made the suggestion. Right now we're completely unable to send those emails because we don't have a from. If we don't have a from email address, we can't send the email out. So this is going to allow emails to go out in that case in the future. So this is also just a building block for us to do further things with it in the future. Okay. The next item I'm going to cover are some changes that we've made to our volunteer referral system. And again, these are covering changes since the last training session that we had in February. If you do have any questions specifically or generally about how the referrals work, and you were not at the session in February, I can cover that now. So please do ask after I finish the new items. If you have any questions about volunteer referrals that I'm not covering, please do ask, and I will cover those as well. So the major changes that we made to the referral system since the last training. Let's see if I can find one. There we go. Are a few new actions that we can take. Pardon me, I'm just closing the window so you don't have to hear trucks going by. We have the ability to take two new kinds of actions on sets of records. One is follow-up flag editing. So by default, whenever a new referral is created, that referral is flagged for follow-up, telling the person who is administering the follow-ups and making sure that they're being processed that they need to deal with that particular item and ensure that all the proper people were contacted and that they don't need to be involved in any way in making the appropriate connections between the volunteer and the organization. So as I say, by default, they're all flagged for follow-up. Because of this, we needed a really easy way for you to take the flags away. So you'll see that when I click follow-up flag editing, I now have the ability to check a number of items and either add or remove the follow-up flag to those items at once. So there I added the follow-up flag, and I can also remove the follow-up flag from a number of items at once. Okay, so that makes it a lot quicker to process a number of records at once. As always, you can also edit the follow-up flag from within the record itself. So when I'm actually editing it, I can say whether or not follow-up is required. But if I want to do it for a large group of records at once, for instance, if you don't tend to proactively do anything to monitor the referrals, you may want to periodically clear them and indicate that they don't actually require any follow-up from you. Or you may want to have them basically default to not having follow-up and only flag things that you actually believe need follow-up. So this gives you the ability to really easily manipulate this on a large number of records at once. In addition to follow-up flag editing, we have the ability to email a follow-up request.
For referrals you haven't...
Oh, for referrals you haven't reached in 4 months, right. So the email follow-up allows you to send a generic message to either the volunteer or the organization to follow up on the referral. So let's take the case of all of these volunteer Kingston records. So in this particular case, they're all to one organization, and you'll notice that I have 5 different volunteers. If I did send to organization, it would send one single email to Volunteer Kingston listing each of these individual people's requests. Okay? If I did send to volunteer, it would send 5 emails, one to every single volunteer listed, each referencing the single opportunity that they applied for. If I'm going to uncheck all. If I click these 2 opportunities that are both to Mickey Mouse and did send to volunteer, it would send a single follow-up email to Mickey Mouse about both of these items. Okay, so just to clarify, it will send only a single email to each recipient, meaning if it's an organization, it will only send one email to that organization and list all of their referrals that you're asking for follow-up. And it will send one email to every individual volunteer for a send to volunteer, listing all of the referrals that you have selected if there's more than one. Okay, so it's not going to send out one single email for every single thing you check necessarily, because obviously we want to minimize the number of emails that we send to people, because it does bother people to receive a large number of emails. Now, what do these emails look like? That is completely up to you. So if I say, let's send an email to the organization, it is completely blank. You specify the subject, the message opening. It will then provide a complete list of the referrals. So who it was referred to, what the position was, what date the referral was made, all of the relevant details about that referral. And then you can specify any closing that you want. Okay, so this is a completely customized message, and you can have it say anything you want. Unfortunately, we don't have any kind of template for you to save at this time. That would be an enhancement. So you may want to have a Word document or a text document somewhere where you can copy in the text if you do these kinds of referrals regularly, these referral checkups, so that you don't have to be typing these out every time. You can just copy in the text from somewhere where you've saved it. But the list of the referrals that you're inquiring about will be automatically generated by the software. And again, up at the top here, it gives you a list of the specific referrals that you're going to be sending a request about. Does anyone have any questions about how those follow-up emails work? You have to select groups and send the emails individually. As long as the message content is the same, you can select as many items as you want. So if I selected all of them, okay, and did send to volunteer, it would send out one message to each volunteer listed here, and it would list all of the referrals that I had picked. Okay, so let's say that I want to go to the main menu. I'll do a search for let's say that I only want to do ones that are marked as not having a successful placement, okay? Usually you would actually want to be searching on ones that you don't know what the placement is. If I did send to organization and I want to inquire to the organizations rather than the volunteers about these particular items to see if any of these were successful placements or if the volunteers got in touch, if I click send to organization, it's going to send only, in this case, I only have an email for the one item. So it's not going to send to these two because I don't actually have email set up for these. But if I did, it would send one email to each organization that I had picked. So in this case, there would have been 4. And within the email, it would list each of the referrals that applied to that one organization. Okay, so for Volunteer Kingston, it would have these 4 items listed. For Santa's Workshop, it would have the 1, and for Hospital for Sick Children, just the 1, and the same for this one, just the 1. Okay, and the same would hold true if I did send to volunteer. It's going to send one email to each individual. Okay, so only one email to Mickey Mouse, even if I pick 2, and I can do them all at the same time. So I can pick all of those and do send to volunteer, and the system will automatically make an individual email for each person. Once volunteer profile is ready. So we'll be talking a little bit about how volunteers connect to volunteer profiles connect to referrals when we do the volunteer profile stuff. If there is a profile connected to the referral, it takes the place of the other information that might be manually typed, okay, where someone is manually putting in their contact information. It's going to just tie into the referral or to the profile and get their information out of their profile. They're not going to have provided all of their contact information separately with each request. It will just say, you know, this referral request is tied to this volunteer profile, and other than that, it works exactly the same way, and you can do all the same things. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about those volunteer profile or volunteer referral enhancements? I think that's everything that wasn't covered in the last training. One thing that we had done just before the last training, but I think we did cover in the training, was the searching and sorting. So the fact that you can sort on any column in the search results. So I could sort by volunteer name, organization name, position, and so on. I think we did cover that in our last training, but just in case you didn't know, that was one of the more recent features when we did our last training. Okay, so that's it for the new for referrals, and as I say, we'll touch a bit about how our volunteer profiles connect to referrals when we cover the volunteer profiles, which is the last thing we'll be covering in the training today. All right, next item, I don't want to do the community sets next because that's just the grossest. Hand up. Okay. Oh, you're typing hand up already, Jennifer? Okay, I've unmuted you, Jennifer. Did you want to talk, or do you have your audio enabled, Jennifer? Oh, okay. Well, do you want to type your question? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to cover is our send an update to an organization about all their opportunities. So we call this email update level 2. Okay. So there are 2 ways to get to email update level 2. I'll start with one of the easiest ways. Oh, I have a question. Yes, when an email, Jennifer asked, when the email is sent to the agency, it does automatically update the last contacted, so the last time that, at least it will as of this upgrade. At one point it didn't, but when you send out that referral follow-up request, it will automatically update the last contacted information that's part of the referral. So when you go to the individual referral, there is a date called the potential volunteer was last contacted about this position, and the contact person was last contacted about this referral, and there's a date and how they were contacted. That will automatically be updated, so it would automatically say, you know, today by email if I sent out a referral contact request. Okay, so that is automatic. Good thing to point out, Jennifer. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to talk about the, as I say, email update all. If I can find a good one. Oh, I'll take a moment. Since I'm here and it's obvious, I put a little heart in just so that way it would be very obvious. One of the new features is the ability to add your own icons instead of the little colored balls. Okay, we've added 3 additional colored ball icons. You should already have 2 more, and there's 1 more in the next software update for a total of 11 different colors. And you can now specify a completely different icon. If you don't want to use CIOC's little colored ball icons, you want to have your own, you can now specify a web address for any icon that you want to use in this legend. So it's a simple change. However, the important thing that happens as a result of that is that you used to be confined to the number of balls that you had in the legend. So when we had only 8 balls, which we did at the time of the training in February, you had a maximum of 8 different regions that you could specify in your community group. So you could only have 8 items listed here in your legend. By adding 3 more balls, we increased that to 11. By adding the ability to have your own icons, we've increased that to as many as you want. So there's now no restriction on the number of items that you can have in that list. You're no longer restricted to 8 or even 11. You can have as many as you want because you can specify your own icons. Okay, email update, all opportunities request. So we call this our email update level 2 for short. That's what it was called in the Enhancements database. Our level 2 email update can be sent to any organization, whether or not they have any opportunities in your database currently. Be aware that it does use the contact information in the organization record, not in the opportunity record. So this particular email update functionality is to do with the organization and not any particular opportunity that they may have listed in your database. That is why the link is here in the agency details rather than up here with the opportunity, okay, to distinguish from our regular email update request. When I do an email update all opportunities request, you'll notice that it's very, very different. It will potentially have a link, not specifying any specific opportunity, but rather giving them a link to your database to show them the list of all the opportunities that they currently have listed in your database. It will only provide this link if they do currently have opportunities listed in your database. And it will also give them their own custom list of, or their own custom page to specify a new volunteer opportunity for their organization. Okay, so someone asked where I was. I was in the details page of the volunteer opportunity, but there are multiple places for you to do this, and I will show you each of those places. Okay, so in this particular case, I'm in the opportunity details, so the details page in the volunteer software, and I went down to the agency information. But you'll notice if I go to more agency info and view the organization record, I also have the email update all volunteer opportunities request. And that's because I can send this message to any organization. It doesn't have to be an organization that already has volunteer opportunities. So if you want to be soliciting for brand new opportunities to an organization that doesn't currently have anything listed in your database, this gives you a chance to send a solicitation email to that organization saying, you do not currently have any opportunities in our database, but if you would like to suggest one, here is the link to do it. Okay? So back to the actual form for doing it. It looks very similar to or certain items are very similar to what you're used to in the regular update request, in that it will insert the name of the current agency. Keep in mind that this isn't tied to a specific record. This is your agency, you, the user creating this message. All right? Very, very different from whenever you send out an email update request to an existing record, the from is always going to be the record owner. But because this isn't about a specific record, but rather a general request, the agency information comes from you. It comes from your account. So I'm not understanding what the question. So it's technically possible, but with
sorry, I'm having there's a little bit of a discussion about on the referral search page, the legend not being visible as you scroll down and having the legend be held in position. And I had responded that would have to be an enhancement request, and the response was so that then it's technically possible, but we have to make changes. And my answer to that was yes. But it tends to be a bit problematic because you either have to require JavaScript or you have to have a recent browser version.
Yeah, that is, things remaining anchored on your screen can tend to really tick people off. So that's a really dangerous change as well. Anyway, back to the email update request. The major difference here, though, is again, it's not referencing any specific record, and all of the agency contact information comes completely from you, the individual, and your agency. Okay? The record number here is going to be the community information record number. Okay? So that might be BPN 0001, whatever it is in the community information database, because that's who we're contacting. We're contacting the organization. Now, who is it going to contact at that organization? Well, if you have specified a volunteer coordinator in that organization, it will try and use that first. Okay, so that's our first try. Do we have a volunteer coordinator at that organization? Because if we do, that's obviously the best person to contact. So it's going to use that. If if it doesn't have that, there will also, the other contact emails that it will present you with are all of the existing contact names in any of the existing volunteer opportunities, meaning if I had 10 different volunteer opportunities at the organization involving 3 different people who each were responsible for that set of 10 opportunities, it would provide me with a list of all of those emails and the opportunity to send this email to any one of them or all of them. So take the example of a very large organization that had a number of different people working on different kinds of volunteer opportunities, and there were multiple potential contact people who might want to add more opportunities or update existing ones. This will detect any of those contact names that we have in any of the existing opportunities, as well as the volunteer coordinator information in the organization, and will list all of them. And you, the person sending out the request, can decide how many of those people you actually want to send this request to. So that's why we see this checkbox here, is it would list all of the potential contacts that I have available to me, and I can decide to check or uncheck any of those. And I also have the opportunity to specify any other email address I want. So at the time of sending it, I can just specify some random one, or even both. I can say send it to this person, but also send it to kate@kclsoftware.com, and it will send one copy of this email to any one of those people that I have selected. Okay, so it does potentially offer you quite a large number of emails if you do have a number of different contact people at that organization. It would present all of them and give you the opportunity to make the choice about who you want to send it to. And if you don't want to send it to any of those existing people, you can specify a different contact at any time. Okay? Other than that, the rest of it works exactly the way that you're used to when you send out an update request. Okay? Meaning that you have a portion of it that you can update. There's a portion of it that you can edit as the default, okay, in the normal update request area, and there's a portion that is inserted automatically by the software, okay, and again you can pick which view. If there's multiple views, you can pick which view to send it to. Does anyone have any questions about what we call the level 2 update functionality, the email update all? Okay, so again, the main reasons you would be using this is you don't want to have to send them individual update requests for every one of their opportunities. For an organization that might have a very large number, you can just periodically send them an email saying, go here to see all of the postings that you currently have, go here to suggest a new one, also, if you want to solicit brand new opportunities to an organization that you don't already have opportunities for. I have a question from Ted. Email to multiple recipients. It should be comma, Ted. So if you want to do in the other, if you want to have multiple, it would be by comma. But again, there will already be probably a number of emails, and then you can specify as many additional emails as you want in the other selection. So if I wanted to add Chris@kclsoftware.com, I can do that too.
And Leslie's got her hand raised.
Okay, Leslie can speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that this particular tool really reaffirms the advantage that is gained by attaching all of the volunteer opportunities to a single Community Information Center record rather than attaching them by program. Right. Because when you attach them by program or all over the place within the Community Information Database, the advantage of this is depleted to some extent at least.
Yes. But we've actually added another feature, which I'm going to talk about today, that's going to help you in that process.
Oh, okay. I'll leave it with you then.
I'll get there. There's going to be an easier way for you to determine which organization you should be tying your volunteer opportunities to. That's because we've added the alert column to the organization finder to make it easier for you to determine which records you've been, in the past, have been tying your volunteer opportunities to. So it helps you to be consistent. Okay, any other questions about this feature? Great. So that's it. Other than that, it works exactly like you're used to. You can preview the email message, and it sends out exactly like you're used to sending it. It'll show you who you're sending to, the content of your message. And again, you send one of these out per organization. So there is not a feature to do this for many different organizations at once. This is something you do to a specific organization, one organization at a time. And that is because you do have to be so careful about the individual emails you are deciding to send it to that you really can't do that if you're working with multiple organizations at once. Okay. So since I was talking about the Volunteer Organization Finder, I'll take a moment and I'll discuss that. And I'm going to do it in the context of one of our other bigger features, which is the Volunteer Membership Management. So our Volunteer Membership Management is just the most basic framework at the moment. Part of that is we just wanted to get the tool in place, and if this turns out to be something that our members are interested in and want to use, then we can consider adding much more functionality to it to make it more useful to all of you. But there isn't any point in investing any further in this tool unless we know that this is something that our members are going to use and want to do something with. The idea of Volunteer Members Organization Management is it allows you to specify particular community information records that actually belong to your volunteer center. Okay? Sorry, just one moment. We have a question.
Yeah, Jennifer had a question.
Needs a membership renewal reminder letter feature. Now, there's a number of things that, as I say, this feature will need to do, or this tool will need to do, to really be a very useful tool for you. All we focused on right now is getting the framework in place so that you have an idea of what this is for and what this can do for you. And if you do want to use it and you do think it's an interesting tool, but it needs certain things to actually be practical for you or useful to you, then we need to start getting those requests into the Enhancements database so that we can start working on them. The idea of the Volunteer Member Organizations Management is, again, you specify which of the thousands and thousands of community information records are actually members in your volunteer center or organizations that you're dealing with regularly. And in particular, it's going to allow you to track a few specific things about those members. Obviously, it's going to allow you to track whether or not they are members, whether they're active members. You can, if you choose, you can track their renewal information, so when they're next due to renew, when they last renewed in the renewal history. If you choose to, you can track invoices that you've sent to them just by entering in the number of the invoice, the date it was issued, the date it's due, and the amount that was due. You can track payments towards those invoices, the date of those payments and the amount of those payments, and that would allow you to identify whether particular members were financially in good standing, up for renewal, all of that basic information. Okay? It also allows you to search for your members, bring up a list of your members, and potentially more easily identify those people that you would want to do things like send out your email update all opportunities if you're doing that specifically to the people who are members of your volunteer center. Okay? So I had talked about how we had made a change to the organization finder tool, which is a tool that you can use whenever you are updating your opportunities to indicate which community information record is the hanger on which your volunteer opportunity sits. So in the past, if I searched for, I'll do search for find help, I wouldn't necessarily know which of these items was the record that I should be tying my my volunteer opportunities to. Now that we've added the alert column, I can see that there are already volunteer opportunities attached to these two records, and that makes it much more clear to me which of the records I should be using to attach any future volunteer opportunities to. In addition, it will highlight to me if any of those records are deleted or non-public or have some other kind of standing that I might be concerned about before I want to attach any volunteer opportunities to them. Okay, so that's what we've done. We've added the alert column. Your ability to see the alert column is determined in your security setup. So if you are allowed to see the alert column normally in your day-to-day work, when you're viewing your list of volunteer opportunities, then you would also be allowed to see the alert column here. All right? So if you can't see it, it's because you don't have the permission to see the alert column. I can select any one of these items, create a new membership. I can say they joined today and their next renewal is in a year, and here they are added to the list. Okay? I can see their contact information really easily. When they joined, I can activate or inactivate them. You can see here I can list their opportunities, create a new opportunity for them, get their full record, do that email update all opportunities request that we talked about earlier. I can also, if I choose to do this level of detail, I can manage the renewals and invoices and payments, okay? So if I wanted to create a new invoice, because they've just joined, I'm going to add a new invoice. It will automatically retrieve an invoice number, but most of you will have some kind of invoicing software that would have already generated an invoice number, and you can enter that number here if you want to. So it will generate an invoice number for you. That's sort of the next one available. But obviously, if you're using some kind of accounting software, then the invoice that you would be entering would be the number of the actual invoice that was issued. Okay? We have a question?
About whether it's possible to have more than one VAL module per CIOC database.
I will be getting into that, sort of some parts of that a little bit later with our community set management. But we don't have the ability to separate out the membership management. We have added through our community set management the ability to do separate views, the same way you do in the community information software, where they each have different groups of records. So that was something that we couldn't do in the past because they all had to belong to the same communities. But now we can actually have each view have different communities. However, the membership management is one set of membership management per database at the moment. However, that could be changed to be tied to a particular agency. At the moment, it is not. So the list of members is for the whole database. It's not tied to a particular agency. But it would not be a difficult enhancement to have the membership management be on a per agency basis.
And the invoice numbers are numbers.
They're numbers, but again, if we find that that's something that people want, they want the invoice to be alphanumeric, you can make that an enhancement, and we could potentially do that. Okay? But at the moment, it is numeric. It is stored as a number in the database, and it would have to be a number. So I'll say today, payment due 1 month from today, invoice amount, we'll say will be $75. I can void the invoice if I made a mistake or wanted to cancel it. And again, I can add a payment. So I can say they're going to pay tomorrow. I can either type a specific payment amount, or I can say full payment, and it will go fully against that invoice. And again, this invoice is tied to the specific member that I was working in. So I'll add it. And there's my list of the payment. I can say, and you can void an individual payment as well. Okay. So then it's in my list of invoice history, and at any time I can add a new invoice. And the payment management is on a per invoice basis. When I return back to my information about this particular volunteer center member, you can see that I now have a last invoice and a last payment history. Okay. Last renewal date would be populated as the renewal history happens. So if this member renewed again, then the previous renewal date would go into the last time they renewed, okay? And the next renewal date would get entered into the next renewal date. So it will track the previous history of renewals. Under Manage Renewals, I can say they renewed today under invoice number 6, and their next renewal date is 1 year from now. And you can see then I have an entry in my renewal history. So if I go back to their member details, now I can see the last time they renewed was the 3rd of November today, and the next time they're going to renew is the 3rd of November in 2009. Going back to the search form, I can now do searches by the last time they renewed or the next time they are due to renew. So if I said if the next renewal date is in the past, it could show me all the people that are overdue to renew. Okay. In this list of results, we have the same kind of sorting that we've seen elsewhere in the software. So you can sort up and down on any column. This particular column is the financial standing column. So a question mark means we don't have any history of invoices or payments for this particular organization. Green check mark means that their financial standing is good. They either they don't have any outstanding invoices, or if they do have outstanding invoices, the due date is in the future. So they haven't gone past their due date. They don't owe any money that is overdue. If they were in arrears, we would get a flag like this, a little red flag saying that that particular organization is in arrears. And then I would know that they have an outstanding invoice that they haven't paid. The first column is our active column. Any membership that has become inactivated, meaning they're no longer a member, you would see a red X. Okay? And again, I can sort on any of the columns, or I should be able to. So to inactivate or reactivate, I could reactivate this member just by clicking active. And now they would no longer be inactive. So if I search only for inactive members, it would just bring up the one. If I search only for active members, it would exclude inactive members from the list. Sorry if I went really fast. So the things that we can search when we're looking for our member organizations is keywords in the organization name, their financial status, are they up to date, in arrears, or unknown? Unknown meaning they don't have any invoice or payment history, and whether or not they're active. And again, any means either active or not, or yes, they're active, no, they're not. We can search by when they joined, when they last renewed, or when they're due to be renewed. Those are our current search options to look through the membership. And again, at the bottom, we have our form to add a new member. Does anyone have any questions about volunteer member organizations management? Okay. So next to tackle, I'm avoiding community sets because it's very complicated. I'll next tackle the advanced search form. So this isn't specifically a volunteer feature. This is a feature that was given to both parts of the software in the last software update. And I will be going through this as well in the view setup session that we have, I think it's the beginning of December. But you can now, for any logged-in view that has access to the advanced search, you're going to have the ability to add and remove different components of the advanced search form from the search. In particular, if you're outside Ontario, you're going to want to get rid of the Ontario Secondary School volunteer component, which does not apply to you. If you do not have multiple agencies working in your database, you would want to get rid of the record owner field. Really, and if you don't use the dates and times field for searching because, frankly, it's rarely useful, you can just remove that from your form and not have it clutter up your form and make a giant form. So you have the ability to customize your advanced search form to use just the items that are useful to you. And again, this applies to any logged-in view in your database because the advanced search is only available to logged-in users. While I'm here, although we will cover this later, you will have a volunteer profile option in your views. That is another view setup item that you need to be aware of. You'll notice here in red, it says, note that volunteer profile links and search results only apply to public users in public views. So if I were to add the volunteer profile setup information to a data management view, it would just be ignored because the volunteer profiles are intended for the public, understanding that when staff are doing their searches and working with their opportunities, that they do so through the ability to create and manage referrals, not through volunteer profiles. So volunteer profiles are intended for the public, and you do need to be logged out of the database to do them, and therefore the volunteer profiles are only available in public views. So even if I added this to a data management view, it would be ignored. Okay. Another little note about the volunteer profile setup, besides adding it to the view you want to use it in, you have to ask me first. We've put a blanket switch on the volunteer profile. Part of the reason why we've done that is we want to make sure that this particular feature is very, very thoroughly tested before we actually allow the public to start using it. So even though this is going to be part of the next software update, it's going to ship turned off in all of your databases. And until we have sufficient volunteers to go through what will probably be a multi-week testing process, we won't allow anyone to turn the volunteer profiles on in their database. And once they're turned on, they're on. And we wouldn't turn them back off again. You can decide on an individual basis per view if you want to turn them on and off. So you would want to be sure that you wanted to use them before we turn them on. But for now, it's basically everyone will get them turned off, and we will slowly allow, when we're confident that they're in a state that is fit for the public to use, we will allow people to request that the volunteer profiles be turned on. I'm not going to get any more into profiles because we will cover them later, but since I was here.
Jennifer's asking about the next update.
Oh, yes, the next update, which was already supposed to be happening, we've been in complete chaos the last week with fires that we've been fighting, and we haven't been able to get more than a couple of people updated. So I think, based on what I know is happening at the beginning of this week, we will be doing the software update later this week. And as I did indicate at the beginning of the call today, we're having a particular problem with a cryptography library that isn't working on our servers, and we have to identify a substitute. The cryptography library is used to encode the passwords in the database, and until we get that working, I don't want to do any more software updates until I confirm that we have a working solution for that, because I don't want to have to update everyone again. But it will be imminently. A lot of the things I'm discussing today you do already have. In fact, other than some improvements to the membership management and the volunteer profiles, most of the features that I'm discussing today you do already have. So you can begin using them immediately. And this session will be being recorded, so if you forget anything that we cover between now and when you start using the features, you can come back at any time, review this training session, and just refresh your memory. Okay, does that answer your questions? Okay, so now I get to move on to my least fun my least fun item, which is explaining the new volunteer community setup, which is a lot more complicated than it used to be, but it's also very powerful and a really good change. So although it has made things quite complex, it also is going to allow those of you who work with multiple agencies or over multiple geographic areas to do lots of really great things in your database. So this is a very good change. And I do understand that the setup may seem complicated to some people. It's because it is complicated. And if you do have any difficulty setting up your volunteer communities, to please post on the bulletin board and ask for assistance, and I'm really happy to give you that assistance. We have put in pretty extensive page help to try and walk you through the process of dealing with your communities, including lovely diagrams explaining how all of these components work together. So I do, again, really encourage you to, I'm missing the letter N, I do really encourage you to review the page help as well, because a lot of effort was spent in making the page help very detailed, especially for this area, because we do know that it is now relatively complicated. Now that I've made it sound really scary, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview about how volunteer communities have changed and what that's going to do for you. Those of you who don't have any idea what I'm talking about, it's because the way that your communities were set up before was all migrated for you in a previous upgrade and all set to continue to work exactly like it had always worked for you. So if you're not interested in using any of the advanced features that I'm going to talk about today, you don't have to use them, and you really won't notice any real change between what you did before and what we have now. But for those of you working in databases where you want to have different volunteer opportunities available in different areas, or you want to have different geographic areas in different views of your database, you need to know this stuff. So I'm going to go over what all of the different components mean, how they work, and which areas of the software they affect. The two major changes that we've introduced are, one, the list of volunteer communities applies to the volunteer software as a whole. So that's what you see in this little box down here. Volunteer communities are the things that you can actually pick from when you're updating your records in the update form, where you see the number of positions, and I might see Burlington and a box so I'd enter 1 for Burlington, 1 for Oakville, 2 for Halton Hills, or I can actually, those are the individual communities that I'm actually updating in the record, where I'm saying that this particular opportunity applies to these particular communities. That's what this volunteer communities means. At a higher level, we have the groups, which we've always had. The groups are when we do a search, pardon me, when we do, in the wrong software, when we do a search, we see our groups in the legend, okay? That is where the only place in the entire software that we use community groups. Community groups are a way to cluster a number of smaller communities together just for the purposes of quick and easy display in our search results under the particular legend. So under Halton and area, I might actually have the communities Burlington, Oakville, Halton Hills, and so on, okay? That's what our community groups are for. They allow us to take a couple of, one or more, it could be only one, or it could be several different communities, and group them under one community group, okay? So again, it could be multiple, or it could be just one going under a group. And it's only used here in our search results for these lovely little colored icons, which allow a user to quickly see which communities that applies to. Finally, at the top level, we have our community sets. This is a brand new concept. Community every single person in every database has at least one community set. A community set is the thing that your groups belong to now. And a community set is tied to a particular view of your database. Every view in your database has exactly one community set associated with it. And by allowing you to put your groups under different sets, we're allowing you to have different communities in different views. I'm going to steal Kingston as an example, since you're there. I know that Quincy has their own thing for volunteer opportunities right now, but if they wanted to move in into your database, they would want to have their own geographic areas. They wouldn't want to have to use the Kingston communities necessarily. They might want to use some of the Kingston communities or some of your neighboring communities that you use. So there could be some overlap, just like you see here, where both sets are in the end using some of the same communities, but they're going to have some of their own over here, these blue ones that they're using just for Quincy. And Kingston over here in red is going to have some of these pink communities that really only apply to Kingston. And then we have these purple communities in the middle that might apply to both, where you have some neighboring communities that really both of you might like to use when you're displaying your opportunities. By having these one community set for Kingston and one community set for Quincy, you can operate quite independently in the same database. Within your view, you would each only see opportunities that were belonging to your community set. So if in the Quincy view they create a brand new opportunity, it's automatically going to apply to set B, the Quincy set. And if Kingston makes a brand new opportunity in their view, automatically going to apply to set A, the Kingston community set, and be visible in their view. However, when I'm updating that opportunity, I might also have the ability to say that I want that opportunity to be visible in both community sets so that I could have a volunteer opportunity be available in both the Kingston volunteer opportunities and the Quincy volunteer opportunities. So you can share them between the sets as well. And it doesn't just have to be geography. Although they're called community sets, you can also use them to cluster groups of opportunities for a particular topic, such as if you had a large database and you wanted to have a student portal that only had volunteer opportunities that applied to students and had its own branding and looked, completely different from the rest of your site, or whatever kind of topic you can imagine. So just the same way that the Community Information Database has for a long time been able to create these custom portals, you can now do that in the volunteer software through the use of community sets. Now that I've given you the overview, I want to get into a bit of the specifics about how we make community sets work. First of all, obviously, you have to have the ability to manage our sets. So here in the test database, I have 3 sets set up here. Okay, it's going to tell me how many views are using that set. As I said, every view has to be associated with one of the community sets. In this case, I don't have any views using either of these other 2 sets, but I could. If I had a Bruce Gray view and I wanted it to be associated with the Bruce Gray community set, then it would show 1 here. Okay. Where do you actually assign the community set to the view? You do that in the view setup. So I'll do right here. I'm picking my community set. I could assign this to the Bruce Gray community set. Okay. And now you'll see it says that this community set has been assigned to 1 view. All right. It will also tell you how many records belong to that community set. I had said before that not only are you assigned, is this about the views, this is about the individual records. And for a record to show up in a particular view, it has to be associated with the community set that belongs to that view. For those of you who don't use any of this community set stuff, you don't even notice this because it's automatically setting the community set in behind the scenes. So for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about today, that's because even though this feature has been in the software for some time now, if you're not using any of these advanced features, the software just takes care of it for you, okay? So automatically when you're creating new records or updating your records, it's automatically setting your community set information for you behind the scenes. And whenever you create a brand new record, it automatically is going to add that record to whatever community set is part of the view you're working in right now. Okay? If I happen to have more than one community set, it would optionally also give me the opportunity to add it to one of those additional community sets. So I'm going to show you right now. When I update the record and I'm working in a database that has many community sets, I have at the top of the record the ability to add it to additional community sets. Notice that there is a star next to the Anywhere set. That is because the view that I'm working in right now is the Anywhere, uses the Anywhere set. I can't remove that, okay? You can't take a record out of the view that you're working in. That's just so that you don't end up losing records by accident, taking them out of your view when you didn't really mean to. So it's not going to let me remove Anywhere. And it's warning me here with the star that that's a required set. That's, if you'll recall elsewhere, wherever you see the star, that means required. Likewise here, it's warning me that Anywhere is required. I have to have it in the Anywhere set, which is the one I'm working in right now. But I could also add it to Bruce Gray. And if I so desire, there is a field in the database called community sets where I could actually, I don't think I have it here, but I can actually list the community sets that it belongs to in the record for data management purposes if I want to. You notice here now that now there are 3 records in the Bruce Gray view. And if I went to the main menu and switched to, well, I can't switch. Pardon me. I want to switch to a view I can't switch to. There will only be 3 records in this view. The 3 records that I had assigned to the Bruce Gray community set, because I'm currently in the view that I had assigned to the Bruce Gray community set. So I will only ever have access to the records that were assigned to that community set. Okay. Any questions so far? I don't want to be completely losing people right from the start. Is anything been particularly unclear at this point that you would like me to clarify before going into further detail? Again, if you don't use these multiple community sets, you are never going to see the ability to add and remove it to different community sets because you don't need it. So the software just takes care of it for you. So if this is not something you're interested in, although it's good to know it's there, you just don't even have to worry about it. The software will take care of it for you all behind the scenes. It's only if you're going to be working with multiple different sets of records that you care about this community set management. So let's say that my 2 communities, instead of Anywhere and Bruce Gray, were Quincy and Kingston, and I created this opportunity for Quincy, but I know that this opportunity also applies to Kingston, then I would want to check off Kingston. Okay? Now, what does that do for me besides just putting it in the view? Because it does more than that. It also modifies which communities I see in my number of volunteers needed. Okay? When I added the Bruce County to this record, I got some additional communities. I got Bruce County and I got Blue Mountain. Those weren't part of the record before, and Gray County. Those weren't part of the record before I added that community. And if I remove it and update the record, and I'm going to go and update that record again. Look at this. There is no, oh, it is. Let's put it in. Oh, I'm sure my setup is not what I think it is. I spent a bunch of time trying to set this up before the training, but yeah, let me remember. Yes, I'm happy. Okay. There we go. So now, assuming that those Bruce County communities weren't part of the Anywhere group, which is what I just did over here when I snuck here and deleted them, I removed them from the Anywhere set. So because I'm only using the Anywhere set, they're not going to show up in my list of communities when I'm updating this record. And again, if I come back and I add Bruce Gray right back in again, and I'm back to my scroll bar. Now I got Blue Mountains and Bruce Gray back and Gray County back again, okay, because they were part of the Bruce community set, and when I added that, I automatically got access to those additional communities in the list. I'm going to show you a really important feature. Let's say that this is currently part of that Bruce Gray set, and I say that there are 4 opportunities in Bruce County. I need my scroll bar. There we go. And then I decide later on that this is no longer going to be available in any of the Bruce Gray views, and I remove that community set. What happened? Because I had put that there was some availability in Bruce County, and now I had removed it from the Bruce Gray set. So here's what happens. It's going to remove all of the communities to do with Bruce Gray except Bruce County, because there's data entered in it. So you will never, ever lose the data that you've entered. If you remove it from a community set, it will maintain any of the communities that you have referenced information. So let's say that there was a volunteer opportunity shared between Kingston and Quinte, and you didn't want it in the Quinte view anymore, so you removed it from that community set, but you had already said that that particular opportunity had 4 positions available in Quinte. It would preserve the fact that there were 4 positions available in Quinte in the record information, even though you took it out of the Quinte set and therefore the Quinte view. Okay, so it's still going to always preserve your data no matter what changes you make about where that record is available. Okay, but it's obviously going to remove the ability to add any new information in Bruce County and only preserve the existing information. If I took out the reference to Bruce County and updated the record again, Bruce County is gone from the list, okay? It will only stay in the list as long as there is information there that needs to be preserved. As soon as that information is gone, that extra community disappears because it's not needed anymore. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different setup components. And again, I'll reference back to here. So again, the different components are our sets, which we said are important because we assign sets to records and we assign sets to views. Additionally, every group that we create belongs to a set, and every group has a number of communities from our big list of volunteer communities, okay? So your little box of volunteer communities here applies to the entire database, But within any given view, you're only going to see the ones that have been tagged for your community set through, if you follow down through your groups, the ones that have been chosen. Or, as I just demonstrated to you, if I had added somehow the record, the community V, to a particular record, then in that record only, it would continue to show the community V so that no information was ever lost. But anytime I'm doing searching or creating new records or updating existing records, it's only going to show me the portion of the communities that have to do with my community set that I'm working in right now. Okay? For the groups, you can have the same group names be under multiple sets, but be aware that they're completely independent. You'll notice there's no crossover in groups at all between set A and set B. So between, as I've been using as an example, between Kingston and Quinte, zero crossover in groups. That doesn't mean that they can't have the same name. Group 1 could be called Kingston here, or here we could call Group 2 Kingston and Group 3 Kingston, but in fact, behind the scenes, those are completely independent items. They are not the same group. They just happen to have the same name, okay? No groups are ever shared between set A and B. You can share communities, but not groups. So you set up your communities, you set up your sets. The next thing that you do is set up your groups. So if I'm going to modify the groups for Bruce Gray, you would all be familiar with this because this is a similar form to what we've always had in the software, where you do your setup, you name your group, and you pick the icon that you're going to show. The icon that you're going to show in the legend, okay? So there's my little heart. I have all of the individual little balls that I could pick. In the case of the heart, if I said, okay, I want to change the gray county, instead of having the pink ball, I want it to have this little heart. Okay, and I can add any additional groups. So
please note that the icons you will have to provide hosting for elsewhere yourself, and you can use whatever images you like.
Right. Jennifer asked about the icons. I did a random Google search to find the heart. It's some shopping mall in India that is actually hosting that heart. Really? You would host the icons on your own website, and what you would be putting here is the address to the icon on your own website. Okay? The balls that are in this predefined list are the only ones that CIOC provides for you. If you want to use anything different from that particular list of items, because you want to do the image URL instead, like some completely different icon, you need to host it yourself on your own website. Okay, so now I've created my brand new community group called a new group. I'm going to go to my group member management. This is how I tie my communities into my group. Okay, so this arrow here is what I'm editing right now. I'm assigning my my individual communities to the groups that I've created. So that's what this fourth one is for. So I'm going to go to the Bruce Gray community group members, and here are all of my my communities and the groups that I've assigned them to. So I can take any from my list of total communities. So this list here is those communities that I set up earlier, these ones. I can take any one from the list and add it to any of my groups. Okay? So if I wanted to add Ancaster to a new group, done. Okay? So that means that Ancaster is now going to be available if I'm looking at a particular record. I'm going to change, pardon me, I'm going to change my view to the group the view that uses that Bruce Gray that we looked at earlier. Okay. Oh, I'm not in my default view, so I can't update the record. But I can suggest an update, so that's what I'll do. This one's in 2 views. Find one that isn't. This one's in 2 views too. Pardon me. I was trying to find a record that wasn't in the Anywhere view, but unfortunately I can't find one. But it would automatically have added Ancaster by doing that, okay? And if I go back to my option here, you'll see there's Grey County with the heart that I added, and you'll see there's a new group in my legend, okay? So that's the editing that I had just done, where I added a different icon for Grey County, and I added my new group, okay? So just to review, we have our ability to add volunteer communities. You have to use ones from our global communities table, which has extremely good coverage across Ontario. The management of the giant table is done on the community information side, okay? Because this is a predefined list of communities that's put together by CIOC, although it can be customized. I can use anything from this giant list. So if I say I want to add Flamborough, I've already got Flamborough, I'll say Stony Creek. Paste it in. I can add Stony Creek to my big list, okay? So I can have as many of these communities as I want, and this represents that bottom layer here of all the potential communities that I can have. Next, I'm going to want to do my set management, which says it's these giant ones here, so which ones I'm going to need for different views. If you're using the same set of records, except for maybe non-public and deleted, if you're using the same set of records for every view in your database, you're only ever going to have one set. But if you want to, for geographic reasons or topic reasons or whatever, then you add as many sets as you need. At this point, you would have the ability to go into your view setup and specify which views are assigned to which community set. And then you have the ability to create groups for each set. Okay, and that is the legend that you see here. Those are your groups. And finally, you have the ability to assign your communities to your groups, which is that bottom layer, that arrow that connects group to community. So we create a set, we create groups for that set, we've created our set of volunteer communities, and finally we assign our communities to our groups. Okay, that's the entire process of how you do your community setup. All right. If you do have multiple sets, you may reach a point where you want to be able to manage which records belong to which set. That is why we have this final option here called our community management. This says how many records are in and out of all the different sets in our databases. So you'll notice that I had an impossible time trying to find a record that wasn't part of the Anywhere set, because I wanted to demonstrate to you that it was going to show Ancaster, but because Ancaster was in the Anywhere set, it really wasn't very helpful. You'll notice I can tell right now, opportunities in, 53, and 0 out. There is not a single record in this database that is not part of the Anywhere view. If I look in the Bruce Gray view, I have 2 opportunities in, and 51 plus 1 deleted out. Okay? So I only have 2 records currently in the Bruce Gray view. Let's say I want to, and in our new community set, there are no opportunities in that view and 53 out. If I wanted to take a couple of opportunities out of the Anywhere view, I can do management. I can say, show me all the opportunities that are in Bruce Gray. Oh, and I have to say show deleted, show opportunities to remove. I forgot that. So I'm specifically looking for opportunities that are currently in the Anywhere group that I want to remove from the set. Show me ones that are also in Bruce Gray. So I should get 2. There they are. I can say, I want to remove these 2 items from the Anywhere set. Okay, now I have 51 in and 2 out, 2 in and 51 out. That hasn't changed at all. But if I go into my details, like I just did before, and I do suggest an update, and now I go down to, here we go, only the ones that were in Bruce Gray, because now I have taken out this record from the Anywhere set. I'm no longer going to get the communities that were part of that Anywhere set. Okay? So this tool is just to help you keep track of where your records are. This is going to be really important if you want records to be visible in more than one set. As I had indicated earlier, the system will automatically keep track of putting any new opportunities you create in your set. So you don't even have to think about it. If all you're ever doing is working independently in your own area, you never have to think about this. If Kingston only ever made Kingston records and Quinte only ever made Quinte records and they never wanted to share any, you would not have to think about this because the software will deal with that automatically for you. But if you start wanting to share records with each other, then that is where you're going to start wanting to come in here and figure out who has which records, which ones do we want to share, do we want to move some of the records over here into over here. This tool will help you to do that by telling you, by allowing you to search for records that belong to particular communities, that are in or that are out, and make it really easy for you to add a bunch of records in and out of one of your views all at once. Okay, any questions about volunteer communities? And again, I renew my offer for any of you who reach a point where you want to start doing more complex things with your volunteer communities. I am absolutely there to assist, and this recording will also be available for you to refer to. But if you have any questions now, just let me know. Okay, sorry about that. Sandra, I've unmuted you. Oh, I can't unmute you, apparently. Can you type your question in? Or you are unmuted if you want to speak. Assuming your microphone is working.
I think that they're raising their hands for they can
Oh,
hear us.
say that you can hear us? Okay, that's great.
Okay, I'm turning down all the hands. If there's questions, then...
Okay. So sorry for getting chopped off. I'm assuming we're fine. There's no more questions about community.
Muted.
Okay. So I believe that next on our list is going to be profiles. Give me one moment to make sure I can switch over to Chris, and we should be able to get started. So we'll need about a minute or two just to get everything switched over to Chris, and then we'll start again, okay? causing any inconvenience or extra work for you as the administrator of the database. Volunteer profiles give a few advantages to members of the public. First, it stores information about their personal details so that when they're suggesting or applying for a position or doing yes, I'd like to volunteer, they don't have to fill in their personal information every time. They also don't have to fill out that annoying security check that says, you know, fill in tomorrow's date and so on, that we put in to keep people from spamming our site. So that's one advantage. Another advantage is it keeps track of their referrals for them. So the same way that you're able to browse referrals, they are able to browse their list of referrals. So anything that they have applied for, they would see in a list. They have the ability to record some outcome information about the referral that's private to them. So this would be different from whatever outcome information that you, as the data manager in your database, might want to record. They have their own private area where they can record notes and indicate whether or not they had a successful placement, and it's just for them. Okay? So that's another advantage. And finally, they have the ability to create a search profile, which they can use to do really quick searches, so they don't have to do the step-by-step multiple-page search, but rather they can just fill it out all in one form. Also, they can save that profile for later and be notified whenever there are any new or updated opportunities that match their search profile. So once a day, the software would test whether or not there were any brand new or updated opportunities, and if that person has indicated that they want to be notified, then the system will automatically send them an email listing any of the new or updated opportunities that match their search profile, so they can be proactively notified. Does anyone have any general questions about volunteer profiles before we get started?
We did have a pulled over question from the community staff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jennifer said, so to be clear, I can now host volunteer opportunities in one database from multiple agencies, and each area can have their own view. Yes, absolutely. That is exactly what this does.
Okay. Over.
All right. So Chris is going to take over now. And again, he's going to be presenting not from the test site because we did run into the cryptography library problem. So we can't demonstrate from the test site today, but that's an issue that we expect to have resolved within the next couple of days. And then we are openly soliciting testers. In particular, we think this is going to take a couple of weeks because we're going to want to do the notification testing to make sure that you can create a search profile and we can create and update opportunities, and you can forward us the emails that you get so that we can make sure that everything is working just fine. And also get any information about things that aren't working properly or too difficult to use and so on. So if you are interested in participating or you think this is a really good feature that you want to have in your database, then please volunteer. All right, I'll pass it over to Chris now.
All right, so I'm just starting off here on the not logged in volunteer page, and this is the first place that the public will see a difference when the volunteer profiles are enabled in a particular view. And the volunteer profiles are enabled per view, so you can have views that don't use the profile, and you can have views that do use the profile.
And as I indicated earlier, just a reminder that this applies only to publicly available views and only to users who are not logged in.
So when you're not logged in and the view is a publicly available view with the profiles turned on, they'll see the login now or create a profile. But if they happen to miss that and go straight to a go straight to a search to see what's new, they go into say Kate's email test position and they click on the yes, I'd like to volunteer, they will have an opportunity before they actually volunteer or create a new profile. So I have a profile already, and I'm going to log in. And my browser has nicely remembered my login information. The usernames and passwords in the profile, the username is always going to be their email address. So if they change their email address in the system, then they'll have to log in with that new email address. And the passwords are stored in the database in a way in which they cannot be retrieved. So in the event that they forgot their password, they would have to follow the forgot password link, and a new password would be emailed to them.
Automatically, so they will not have to contact you, the volunteer center, to get a new password. That's part of what I was talking about, in that it should be relatively maintenance-free for you. And the fact that the passwords are stored encrypted, that's why we're having the issue with the cryptography library, because all the passwords are stored encrypted in the database so that they are relatively secure passwords. Like the passwords are kept in a secure fashion.
So I'm pretty sure that my browser knows my password, so I'm just going to sign in here. And you can see that after the sign-in, I've been dumped back into the volunteer page for the opportunity that I was at before. And it's filled out the usual elements that would be needed for the contacts that are stored in the profile. So they don't have to actually type in, this is my name, this is my email, phone, all that kind of stuff. And they can still add whatever notes and comments they want to do. I'm just going to submit that. And because we're still testing things out and we are in training mode, we've made it so that email messages are actually printed out into the web page for development purposes. So anywhere where you see where email is generated, you'll notice that we have a sending email thing. That's obviously not going to be happening on a live site. And here is the information that would normally be printed out.
So the content of the emails and everything else works exactly the way it did before. The major difference here is that where that referral was recorded, it's going to record a note of a reference to the volunteer profile.
And I can go back into my details page for that opportunity, and my previous and next from my search results will continue to work. If I click on the new search button, I will go back to the front page, and there's a link for the user to view their profile. So I'm going to go and look at the profile now. And the profile is divided into several sections. There's their existing application, so they've said they'd like to volunteer, and it lists the applications they've made. This would be a referral to you guys. And I can also set my settings for my search profile, which will get used if I use my saved search using the search button up here.
Right. To clarify, the search button searches in the current view or site that they're working in right now. You'll notice that in this particular one, we have 3 additional sites, or 3 sites listed there, telling the user, these are all the sites where your volunteer profile works. Because with all the community management stuff that we just discussed, say having a Quinty and a Kingston in the same database, if they make a volunteer profile in this database, it will actually work with both of those sites, assuming that they both have been activated to use volunteer profile. So they would only have to maintain one volunteer profile for both sites. All right? But the search now will only search the site that they're currently in. But they can also use the same login to log into any one of those other sites in the same database. All right? So we'll list for them all of the other sites in the database that are public where you have said that volunteer profiles can be used. They would have to log in again, though, with the same profile.
So we have the My Applications, the search profile, and the personal information. So the personal information is the information that they would have entered when they were creating their profile. The only fields that are actually required are the email address and a password. For those of you who've worked with the client tracker, you'll be familiar with the new style of doing change of password where the user is required to put in their current password plus the new password plus a confirmation password in order to actually change their password. The current password is not needed for anything other than updating the password. And it works exactly as you would expect. If I want to say that I'm actually in Hamilton and I submit this, then just like anywhere else where you would update, the personal information will be updated. And you will be brought back to the same tab that you were on whenever you edit things in the forms, such as the search profile. Again, there's an ability to change the settings. So in the search profile, they have the ability to turn on and off the email notifications. By default, the notifications are off, and they have to opt in to getting those regular emails. We allow them to input their date of birth so that they can do an age-based search. This will be converted to their current age at the time they perform the search. The communities here are based on the full list of communities available.
In the full database. So remember when I was discussing that you have your volunteer communities, which is that bottom box, it would be everything in that bottom box. Okay? It would be all the communities in the database that apply to views where you have said volunteer profiles are available. So let's say Kingston, again, I use my lovely Kingston-Quincy example. Let's say Kingston enabled volunteer profiles in their view, but Quincy didn't. It would only show Kingston's communities until Quincy came and activated their volunteer profiles in their database or database view too. Then the next time this user logged in to update their search profile, they would also see all of Quincy's communities.
Barry is asking if someone creates a profile.
Yeah, I read it. So if basically, is there going to be the ability to inactivate a profile? We have built into the database an inactivation field. Currently, we're not doing anything with it, so we absolutely have foreseen that you're going to want to be able to do that. It doesn't do that at this moment, but I am actually suspecting that this is a feature we're going to want to have in place before we launch this to the public. So although I can't promise that, I would expect that that's something we're going to want to try and have in place before we actually launch this. And we have already done the work in the database, like we've already put the spot in the database for you to be able to inactivate it. So absolutely that's something we have been considering.
We have the dates and times. This works exactly the same way as it does on the advanced search page if you're filling out the dates and times there. And we also have the ability to add specific areas of interest. These are added through the interest finder. So I'll bring that up because it's slightly different from the one that you are used to using for setting the areas of interest. As you can see, we have a bunch of interests already in here. And if I search for an interest...
I think you'll need to remove some.
Yeah. If I search for an interest, you'll notice that because Jockey's already been added, I have no ability to add it again. if I remove it, then I will be able to remove that, and I can add them back again. And I can change my items around. I don't have to actually, the item I'm removing doesn't have to be in this list over here. But as you can see, it's a very dynamic page, and I think reasonably obvious about how it works. I can remove all of my interests if I want and close that, and of course I have no interest now. I'll just go back in here and put an interest, and if I decided that I dislike that, I can always reset the form and get all my interests back again, or I can remove the interest using the control elements in here, and when I submit my changes, then I will be able to use that for a new search, or those will be used when I do my email notifications.
The notifications will be for every site where you have activated it. Okay, so that list that you see at the top of the page of the 3 sites, it would provide links to any of the 3 sites that match the criteria.
So now I can go back and look at the applications I've already created. Jennifer's asking if you can add a specific area of interest to a profile, even if there are no opportunities using the category at the moment. Yes. It's based on not the areas of interest that are assigned to opportunities. It is based on the areas of interest that are currently set up in the database, which are across the whole database. So they're not view specific. They are across the whole database, and those are set up through the
through the checklist.
Through the checklist.
So yes, it doesn't matter what, all of the search, everything to do with the search profile has nothing to do with the specific things that you're using in your records at the moment. It's all possibilities. Okay, so it has nothing to do with what's being used in your current records, because we want them to be able to search in the future. We want them to be able to be notified of new things. One thing I wanted to mention about the search profile is that we really hope in the future, if people think this is a valuable tool, that we can add more things to the search profile. In particular, some of the things that you as staff members have available to you on the advanced search form, like the transportation, the seasons, the suitable for, where you could say, you know, I only want to see opportunities suitable for persons with a disability. It would be really, or students, or whatever the case may be, it would be really nice for people to get that extra benefit of having a profile by getting access to all of these additional search features. So that's something we really want to have as an enhancement in the future to this feature.
Neither the agencies nor you can get access to the profile information. This is a one-way street.
So to clarify, because there are privacy issues involved with the profile, we have to be really careful about how that information is used and what's accessible. So there's a few things we need to do. Before we launch this to the public, we will be adding the ability for you to post a privacy policy to explain to the volunteer profile users how you will use their information and what you have access to. Certain parts of their profile you will never have access to, and we will never put in your downloads, for instance, because CIOC itself has a certain amount of responsibility to protect the client's information, and so certain portions of their profile, such as their personal outcome information, will never be given to you. The portions of their profile that are used when they apply for volunteer opportunities are available to you in your managed referrals area. So if they apply for an opportunity that is connected to their profile, then obviously all of their contact information, everything that would normally be available when they apply for a position, will be available to you. And we may allow in the future on a limited basis a bit more access to the profile information, but it will always be restricted. And as I say, we're going to have a privacy policy, or the ability for you to have a privacy policy to explain to people how you plan on using their information before we can allow you to have access to it, because it's really important that, for everybody's sake, that this information is used in a careful and protected way.
Leslie, you had a question? I think I'm unmuting you, but it's...
We don't seem to be able to unmute you. Can you type your question?
Your question is yes, or...
No, she has to remember what it is. Oh, yes, absolutely. They're going, when we add the privacy policy link, we will absolutely have, on the create page, an acknowledgement that they're accepting the privacy policy before they create the profile. Absolutely. Ted asked that. That's definitely something we want to have in place, that they are aware of the privacy policy and acknowledge it. If they choose not to read it, then that's fine, but we want them to have said that they acknowledge that the privacy policy is there.
All right, so while Leslie remembers what her question is, I am going to show you the edit outcome, or a little bit more about my application. So if you're familiar with the referral search, and I think it showed up in a couple other places, we have the dynamically sorted table. So they can sort their applications based on date, or the position title, or the organization name. And we also have this outcome field in the table. You can see that I've already noted that this outcome was successful and given the outcome a note. The outcome is edited by clicking the Edit Outcome button. And this brings up the Edit Outcome window. By default, there is no outcome, either successful or unsuccessful set. And I can set it to be successful or unsuccessful. And I can also add some notes. When I submit that, they go back into the table over here. And I can always go back and decide that I don't know what the outcome is and submit that. And again, we'll only see the notes.
And again, at the moment, this is private. So their ability to specify whether it was successful or not is completely different from your ability as a data manager to specify whether it was successful or not. What we would like to have as an enhancement is the ability for the data manager to see when the volunteer has reported it successful. However, it still wouldn't change your report. Because if the volunteer is reporting it successful and the organization says to you that it wasn't, you don't want to have to accept what the volunteer says, or vice versa. So you would still have control over your own outcome information, but we do hope that just the yes-no flag, not any of the notes, but just the report of success or fail or unsuccess would be something that we could make visible to you, the data managers, but that's not what we have at the moment. But we would always be hiding their notes, because those are their own personal notes, not something for sharing with the data managers.
So Leslie is saying that it would be great if the privacy policy could be shared. I think that's an excellent idea. I think you guys should collaborate on what the privacy policy should be on the message board, and I'm sure that Kate and myself can provide some input as to what we think it should be.
But everyone will be able to customize their own privacy policy.
Right, but everyone would be able to customize their own privacy policy, and that's really necessary because you're going to want to put wording directly about your your organizations, who you are in the privacy policy, probably. But you would, it would certainly give you a starting point as to what to put in there and save everyone a lot of time from having to reinvent the wheel. And it may be possible to put in a basic boilerplate starting point if people want to start discussing that and what should be in it. It may be possible that by the time this thing goes live, that we'll ship the software with a default one that's close to usable, and then you guys will be able to edit it as necessary for your site. So now I have I've volunteered for a couple of positions, and as you can see, I've had a couple of unsuccessful outcomes, and I'm really bummed out about it, especially the last one. I feel like I got snubbed. And I'm really tired of seeing these unsuccessful outcomes in my volunteer profile. Or, imagine that I really volunteer for a lot of stuff, and so therefore my list is getting really long, and there's old ones that I don't care about anymore. Well, that's what the hide action is for over here. And I can go and hide this. Now, hiding is permanent. There's no way to unhide a referral, or as we're terming it for the public, an application. So it has to be confirmed, and I can decide, no, I'm not really interested in hiding that, or I can hide it and say, yeah, I'm really done with that.
So it does not delete it from the system, so it's not removing the application or anything like that. It simply hides it from the list for the volunteer so that they don't have to look at unsuccessful applications or things that they're not interested in anymore.
So now that I've gone and hid all my unsuccessful outcomes, I'm ready to go and search based on my search profile. So let's go and see what I have in my search profile. I'm interested in, you know what, I'm going to go add in jockey, because I'm pretty sure that I'll get a result if I add in jockey, and I'm not sure that I will get a result if I don't.
You might want to remove dates and times. Well,
no, the dates and times are okay, I think.
Okay.
The key is the jockey.
Okay.
I think that's the key to a successful search. And there we go. I dropped me right into the results page, and I have a great position, which I got subbed for earlier. So let's try the horse jockey. And I'm logged in, so yes, I'd like to volunteer, and it fills out my information. And the circle of life continues. I'm done for today, so I can decide that I'm going to log out. And
I have to put the new search to get. This is a bug we've identified. We identified it on the weekend that the new search button is missing on this page, so we will be fixing that. Just so you know. So that's basically volunteer profiles. The create process consists of they'll have to verify their email. So when they create a brand new profile, they fill out all their contact information, and a confirmation request is emailed to them. The account will not be activated until they confirm their email. Okay, so most of you who use the internet regularly will be familiar with this kind of process, because most sites use this, where you apply for a new account, email to a confirmation, you follow the link to confirm, and so on and so forth. Well, that's exactly how this works. So the public should be very comfortable with it, because it's really the way that most login-based sites work these days. And again, it says it should be completely self-maintaining. They can do all of their retrieve, password, change email, all of that stuff on their own. Okay, so they will not rely on you to do that for them.
And there will also be a confirmation when they change their email address. We're always going to confirm if there's either a new email address or a change of email address, that the new email address is reachable, because that's the only way that they can retrieve their password, and you don't want to be involved in the I'm not getting notifications point.
Okay, so that's volunteer profiles. Does anyone have any questions about anything we've covered today? The only thing we haven't covered is the volunteer print tool. I can't remember how long I said this session was going to be.
We have a question from Liz.
Yeah.
And I can't unmute people. Can you unmute people? Look for the hand.
Yes.
You can unmute people?
I unmuted
Liz.
Liz, yes. You might have to type, Liz, because we don't hear you.
Oh, we're typing. Okay. Can we treat postal codes for our staff purposes? From the there's.
So we're still in the midst of deciding what we're going to give you in your download. And if we decide to give you basic contact information in your access download, then yes, you would have access to postal code information. But as I said, because of privacy concerns, we have to be very thoughtful about how we're giving access to information. And if the membership decides that, you know, we really do need to make sure that the volunteer centers have access to just basic contact information, then that's what we'll do. And for now, we will include the basic contact information part of the profile in your download and hide everything else.
We're really, really strict about the about this kind of thing because everybody's on the same server. So anywhere where people are abusing email or anything like that, it all comes back to CIOC. So if one member is abusing things, then it affects everyone.
Right. So that's in part why if we choose to make your contact list available to you, it might not be inside the software. So we might not give you the ability to email people in the software just because we really need to protect the software's ability to continue to email people. And if we get on the spam blacklist, then the software won't be able to send out emails to people. This is really, really bad. Whereas if you in your, at home or at work with your own service provider decide to email people and they don't like it, that's your problem. So it's more likely that we're going to decide to give you in your access database the contact information, and you will have the ability to decide what to do with it yourself, but not, in particular with email, not necessarily the ability to broadcast email to people because we have to be very protective and careful to ensure that the software continues to function well. Yes, I see the typo, the personal info typo. Yes, we'll make sure and correct that.
Gary's question about
Oh,
session 2.
yeah, we won't be covered. The update publications was missed in session 2. That won't be being covered until next week. So that will be in the setup and configuration session next Monday. So the only other thing I'm covering today, other than your general questions, is I'm going to give a brief overview of the volunteer print tool. And again, I won't be going into detail because we're going to have an entire session on working with the print tool in December. All right, so I'll just give you a little teaser about what the print tool does. And then if you find that interesting, you should attend the session in December. And we also have a number of resources available, some PowerPoint presentations on creating print profiles, and we have quite extensive page help on print profiles.
So apparently we have until 4. Did we miss something?
Yeah, print profiles.
Print profiles, okay.
So I did want to give anyone an opportunity before I move on to yet another thing. If there's anything that I have covered today or any general items to do with the volunteer software that you would like to cover now. And if there's nothing, then I'll just proceed to print profile. Okay, so I'll steal back control. Will be one more minute while I steal back control from Chris. Okay, so I will also be using our local site just because I know that I have a volunteer print profile in place on my local site. But of course, this feature is currently available in all your sites, including the test site, so you can use it at any time. Volunteer print profiles were modeled after the community information print profiles, and they contain all the same features except the ability to do subject indexes. Okay, so there's no subject or name indexes, but other than that, the two functions work exactly the same. So for those of you who have experience setting up print profiles in the community information software, it's exactly the same process to set one up in the volunteer software. What do print profiles do for you? Mainly they give you the ability to set up a number, or to print out a number of different opportunities, information at once. So a list of records. It's certainly not necessarily the best choice if you're only printing out a single record. For that, we would generally prefer that you use a print template and just print from your record details page. And that, again, is something we'll cover in quite a lot of detail in our print session at the December session. But for print profiles, it allows you to take a group of records, print them together at once as a list, define which fields you want to show, and also do quite a lot of customization of the layout. So the place where we manage our print profiles is through Setup, Print Profiles. It can be quite complex, which is why we're devoting an entire session explaining how the print profiles work. They can have their own headers and footers. They have their own style sheets, which specify what kind of fonts and colors and layout to use. You can do things like, say, when I print them, I want every record to print on one page, or I want them to print all one after each other. Really, the customization is huge. You specify the individual fields that you want to show in your print profile. So in this case, I'm showing position title, organizations levels 1 through 5, so the organization name, the description from the record, the duties, the interests, and so on. You do have access to not just all of the fields in the volunteer database, and I do mean all of them. You also have access to a limited set of the fields from the community information database. For those of you who are used to working with the actual tables that are part of the software, this would be the fields that are the global fields, the ones in global base table, the ones that are part of your download on the volunteer side. When you do your volunteer access download, the information that's in the global tables there to do with the organization, those are the fields that you have available to you in your print profile, okay? So it's a lot more fields than what you have normally on your record details page. So it does give you an opportunity to print out more information about the organization that you normally have access to when viewing just that little more agency info at the bottom of the record details page. But it isn't the full set of fields. It is confined to certain specific fields to do with contact, basic description of the information, basic location, address information, and so on, okay? Website address, and so on. I'm not going to get into the process of how to create a volunteer profile because, as I said, there's a whole session on that, but I will show you how you use them. So, when you do a search for records, I'm going to do a What's New search. Notice that I am in the table display format. For those of you not familiar with this, in Change Display Options, you have to have selected Use Table Format. All right? That changes it from a display like this, which the public sees, to a display like this, which is what the community information side looks like, and which allows you to add a number of additional fields to your display. Besides adding other fields, it also allows you to add this last column here called the Select Checkbox field. So again, you'll see in my Change Display, I have Select Checkbox selected. This is very important. I can then select specific records that I want to print and say print list. I can pick my profile from the list. You can have as many different print profiles as you want. So you could have one which had everything in it that was for internal use. You could have one that just had basic contact information, so just the position title, duties, contact information, nothing else. Whatever you want. It could even be as simple as all of the contact names, emails, anything. You set up the profiles for whatever use is good for you, and then you specify the order in which you want the positions printed. So you can order it by the organization name, by the position title, by when it was created, or when it was last modified. So in this case, I'm going to order by organization name. If there's already a message specified in your profile, the default message will show here. I'm going to edit it. So, and it opens in a new window and prints out a list of your records. Okay, this is optimized for printing. So obviously it's much, much different from what you get on your record details page. And as I indicated earlier, it's going to print them in one single list. In this case, you'll notice they're numbered. That's something that I set up in my profile, so you can choose to number them or not. You'll also see there's my message printed at the top. So I could say, printed for Jane Doe. And then it would say that I had printed this particular list of opportunities out for some specific person, whatever you choose to do. What you can often do when setting up a print profile is have a template where you just want to modify a few specific details at the time of printing. Depending on your setup, when you actually go to print it, it may print every record on its own page, or it may print them all one after another. These are configuration items that are completely up to you. Things like these bars that you see, again, these are styles that were set up in this particular profile. You can set up whatever kind of design you can imagine. Pretty much any kind of design, look, fonts, colors that you can do in a website, you can also do in your print profiles. Okay? You specify how the information is formatted, whether it be headers like this, or in a table like this where you specify the field and then the contents, or here's another kind of header, or you can just print the information like just the way this is. You can print it without a label, just flowing one after another. Okay, so it's completely customizable, and that's about all I can say about that. As I say, the details we'll be going through in extreme detail in December. Does anyone have any questions in general about what the print tool is for, how it works? Setting up the profiles, I will leave till the next session. I will say there is extensive help. If you want to try and do it now, there is really extensive help on print profiles in extreme detail of how profiles work, okay, for all sections of it, okay? Very, very detailed help. Oh, you can, yes. So for those of you that aren't familiar with this from the community information side, you can save the resulting page and open it in a word processing software, okay? Certainly Microsoft Word is excellent at opening up an HTML file, and then you can edit it and save it as a Word document, okay? So if you want to create a report and then use it or modify it for some other purpose, you can bring this into your word processing software and use it there.
Would then allow you, if you're using 2007, to create a PDF, right as default out of Word. OpenOffice allows you to create PDFs as well. I'm not sure how opening this in OpenOffice goes. We haven't tried it.
Or if it's just for printing, you can print it right out of your browser. So whichever you want. Unlike in the community information software, you don't have to specifically say whether or not you're doing it for Word or web. The only reason that we have that choice in the community information software is because of the indexes. which I had said aren't part of the volunteer tool. Just the record report doesn't, you don't have to specify whether or not you're using it in Microsoft Word. Just if you want to save the file, you can open it up just as a regular HTML file in Microsoft Word and edit it. Okay, is there any questions? We've got half an hour, but I'm also not going to drag it out. If there's no questions, I'm just going to let everybody off early.
Are there any general volunteer questions?
Yeah, and basically anything volunteer. If you have any specific questions, now's the time. Okay, well we'll cut the session off now. And again, if you find the whole idea of doing these printed reports intriguing, please do attend the session in December. Oh, and I did want to take one moment here to say thank you very much to Volunteer Hamilton, who is responsible for your volunteer membership management, your referrals, your profiles, all of these wonderful big features that we have is thanks to them. And also a big thank you to Community Connection, who you have to thank for your community set management. Oh, and HIP for actually providing us with the webinar service. So lots of people to thank today. All right, thanks. Have a good afternoon.